There's a strange paradox at the heart of human society. We glorify intelligence, but only when it's harmless. We celebrate inventors, applaud scientists, even quote philosophers. But the truly dangerous minds, the ones that pierce illusions and question the foundations of society, are often rejected, mocked, or quietly erased. Why? Why does deep thinking, the very trait we claim to admire, become a threat when it goes too far? Arthur Schopenhauer, the brooding philosopher of pessimism, might offer us a clue. He once wrote that the more unintelligent a man is, the less mysterious existence seems to him. That sentence, simple, almost quiet, is a bomb waiting to explode. Because it implies something radical, that the smarter you are, the more alienated you become. That insight isn't a gift, it's a curse. And that curse makes you dangerous, not because you intend to destroy, but because you see too clearly. Let's break this open. Society by design runs on order, not truth, not insight, not even progress. Order, rules, roles, routines. We follow the script, we repeat the patterns, we play the game. Now, the average person doesn't question it. Why would they? It works. It gives them safety, identity, a path to follow. But the deep thinker, the one who sees beneath the surface, they start noticing cracks in the walls, the contradictions in morality, the illusions of success, the emptiness in the rituals we repeat every day. And then they ask questions, real questions, uncomfortable questions. That's when society begins to turn, not with argument, but with silence, dismissal, ridicule, because truth, when it threatens the illusion, must be silenced. Schopenhauer believed that intelligent people suffer more precisely because they see more. They're not fooled by the noise. They can't pretend to be satisfied with shallow distractions. And that creates a dangerous tension. Because what happens when someone realizes the emperor has no clothes? What happens when they try to point it out? Society doesn't say thank you, it says shut up. Because deep insight doesn't just threaten bad ideas, it threatens power. And power, whether political, religious, or cultural, has always feared the thinker more than the soldier. You can control violence, but a free mind, that's unpredictable, that's contagious. Think of history. Socrates was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth with philosophy. Galileo was imprisoned for observing the stars too honestly. Nietzsche died alone, dismissed as mad for declaring truths people weren't ready to hear. Each of them saw what others could not, or would not, and each of them paid for it. Not because they were wrong, but because they weren't afraid to speak. And nothing is more terrifying to a society built on illusion than a mind that tells the truth. But let's take a breath. Is this just bleak? A call to silence yourself to survive? Not quite. Because while deep thinkers may be feared, they are also necessary. Schopenhauer saw suffering as intrinsic to life, but he also saw art, philosophy, and contemplation as ways to endure that suffering, to transcend it. The role of the thinker isn't to be accepted, it's to see, to witness, to reflect, to disturb. Yes, disturb. Because disturbing illusions is the first step to awakening from them. If you're someone who often feels misunderstood, if your thoughts take you places others avoid, if you ask questions that don't have easy answers, then you're not broken. You're not lost. You're not dangerous in the way they think. You're dangerous because you think. And in a world that runs on comfort and repetition, that alone is an act of quiet rebellion. So don't stop. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's heavy, but it's real. And truth, no matter how unwelcome, is always a light in the dark, even if most people cover their eyes. But let's go even deeper, because this isn't just about intellect or insight. It's about the unbearable weight of awareness. When you see how artificial so much of life is, the masks we wear, the roles we play, the lies we tell ourselves just to sleep at night, you're not just observing the world, you're being torn away from it. Isolation isn't a punishment in this journey. It becomes the default state. You try to connect, but the conversations feel shallow. The routines feel absurd, the smiles feel hollow. And so you retreat, not out of arrogance, not out of superiority, but because silence feels more honest than small talk. You realize that most people don't want truth, they want comfort, certainty, belonging. But philosophy offers none of those. It offers questions without answers, mirrors without distortion, and the unsettling realization that existence might not have a purpose that fits neatly into a headline or a hashtag. Yet, strangely, in that solitude, something awakens. You begin to see beauty differently, not in achievement, not in wealth, not in recognition, but in small, fleeting moments. A tree against the morning fog, a sentence in a forgotten book, a quiet understanding shared with someone who finally gets it. And then you realize something truly dangerous. You don't need the world's approval. You're no longer chasing applause. You're not trying to be understood by the crowd. You're not desperate to belong to a system that was never built for minds like yours. That is the true danger. Not the intellect alone, but the freedom that comes with it. Because a person who sees through the illusion and chooses not to return to it cannot be controlled. So maybe Schopenhauer was right. Maybe the more we think, the more we suffer. But maybe that suffering is sacred. Maybe it burns away what's false and leaves behind something unshakable. Not answers. Not comfort, but clarity. And in a world addicted to distraction, clarity is the rarest form of rebellion. If you've ever felt that your thoughts set you apart, or that seeing the truth comes with a cost, you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments. Have you ever felt too much for the world around you? Let's make this a space where deep minds feel understood. And if this spoke to you, you may also find meaning in our video on the quiet power of solitude. Thanks for watching and for being here with us. Like and subscribe if this kind of reflection feels like home.